purpose. In fact, what they were even advising, SBU, was that you could quite easily go to level 1 because the lockdown has now become a blunt instrument. You've served the purpose. You now need to rely on other tools. Now, they have scientifically crafted all those tools that we now need to rely on. And that is the advice that we are heeding. But we also had advice from the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization was saying, we advise that countries should ease lockdowns gradually and slowly, and do so as the infection rate goes down. Now, armed with both advices from the two centers, the National Coronavirus Council and the Cabinet decided that we are going to take a midpoint and do it gradually. Rather than rush quickly to level 1, as advised through, yes, the scientists, we said, let us rather go to level 3 and gradually move on to level 2. This will also help to give us time to get even more ready throughout the country, as we are doing now. There are quite a number of areas in our country where we still need to button down our state of readiness. We still need to have more health workers to be brought on board to go and do the screening throughout the country. We still need to set up testing. And as you have heard, our testing capacity is still not at the level where we want it because we've been running short of tests instruments. We're hoping that as we get them now with a new offer, we will be able to ramp up our tests. So those are all the instruments that are informed by science. And so science has been very much at the center of all this. And it is what has now informed us to say, yes, as we now move down to level 3, it is time to open up the economy because we cannot keep the economy shut forever and in a day. We do need to open it up. People do need to go back to work. But even as the companies do open, we want to ensure that our tools are put in place. Every measure or intervention that needs to happen should be in place so that we are able to keep the curve going down. So when it comes to the churches, we were approached by the church. And they approached us long ago. And let me say, when we initially did the lockdown, there were a number of churches that felt that no, they didn't really submit themselves to a lockdown. Through consultation, we were then able to get all the churches to agree to a lockdown. And of course, it needed to be enforced by the state. And let me say, we are very, very pleased that the churches, by and large, and in fact, all of them, complied with the lockdown provisions, from small churches to the large churches, realizing the dangers that people would be open to. And as we've now moved to level 3, the church leaders and in all formations of faith-based organizations came to us and said, we would now like to allow worshiping to happen, and we've got the protocols in place. For instance, the South African Council of Churches came with a well-documented protocol guideline and said, this is what we would do. We would not allow this and that and that, and there would be restricted numbers of people, and people would not be willy-nilly allowed to come in, and so forth. And it was at their instance, and also observing the fact that, yes, we are now moving to level 3, where we are, for instance, going to now be getting people to go to work. People are going to go to work, and they are going to be working side by side. And in the mines, in our factories, and we're also going to be saying our grade 7 and grade 12 children can go to school. And they are to be learning side by side, separated by a meter and a half, with all the masks and and the hand cleaning and all that. And we said that if it is self-controlled, as we expected it to be, and as it was articulated to us would be, was something that could be allowed. And it was that informed that. But more importantly, the churches themselves have been saying, we are not ready. We will not be ready as of the 1st of June to comply with all these provisions. And in fact, some of them are saying to us, we will only be ready in August. We will only be ready in September. And we've said, we welcome that. We've also welcomed those who have said, because we are not ready at all, we are not going to open. So our approach has been based on consultation. It's been based on discussions with the religious organizations themselves. And I believe that it will be well managed. And I'm rather pleased that they also see the time frame of being able to do this is going to be elongated. It is going to be later in August. And at the same time, we are having discussions as we've been approached by the tourism sector with restaurateurs as well as hoteliers about their own situation. And we are having discussions on those. And what I can assure all of us is that we are very serious about taking due care about the safety of South Africans. And where we see that the spate of infections could start rising, as we have seen in shopping centers in the Western Cape, as we have seen in a number of areas in shoppings in the Western Cape, we are going to immediately make interventions to stem that and to stop that. Because our approaches really have to be based on saving lives as well as preserving livelihoods. And that is what has been driving us. And it's not been based on being put under pressure by certain interests. It has been science-based as well. Now, you ask whether I will be able to take questions going forward. Yes. The answer is yes, we will be able to take questions, and I'm happy to do so, as obviously we do nationwide wide addresses. We will do that, and then on the following session, we will be able to take questions because those are structured in a particular way. Juanita wants to know about the disconnect and the implementation of decisions that we take. Is there any consequent management? And her issue is decisions are taken and announced, and then there is no implementation. Now, as I've said repeatedly, one of the challenges that we've been facing, which I have identified over and over, is the capacity of the state. The state that, if you like, I inherited has been a weakened state in a number of ways. And much of what we've been trying to do is to show up the strength of this state. The district development model is one pillar around which we want to strengthen the state and destroy the silo mentality of doing things in government, where one department does not know what the other department is doing, and where we can enhance implementation of decisions that are taken. Now, as we enhance this capacity of the state, of course, there will be a number of instances where there are weaknesses and where, for instance, there is no proper follow-through. I mean, you give a very good example, about the implementation of the payment of the 350 Rand to the unemployed people in our country. We took the decision, and having taken the decision, and in a way, this decision was unexpected to those who would implement it, because they had to craft a new way of paying an amount of money to people who were not on their books, who were not registered with them, who were not in the system. So a system had to be put in place, and it had to be built from scratch. And they obviously had stop and starts, and they obviously had breakdowns and whatever. Now, I'm assured that the system is now working, and they have already paid almost 120,000 people, and they are going to be processing almost 600,000 people in the next few days. And we will be getting up to what we believe will be about 3.5 million people. Now, that is a phenomenal process, because many of the people don't have bank accounts. And you then have to find a way of paying them, either through e-wallet or whatever other platform. Some of them have bank accounts. You've got to validate them. You've got to find those people. You've got to check with SARS, Home Affairs, and everyone else. So all that process is now being done. And they show me they've done already 3.5 million. We've been validated and checked, rather, and thereafter payment is going to happen. So the capacity of the state has been a major issue. Will there be consequence management? Of course there will be consequence management, where my colleagues, ministers, or even officials do not act in accordance with what they are supposed to do. COVID-19 has given a further boost to the capacity of the state. And I want to capitalize on that so that our capability of delivering more and more water, of registering almost 3.5 new people on our system, is something that I want to capitalize on and demonstrate that the state can have capacity. The state-owned enterprises, looking into the future, COVID-19 is going to give us greater capacity and capability to reset and reposition and even repurpose our state-owned enterprises. And I'm glad that a number of initiatives are now underway to address precisely the issue of our state-owned enterprises. South African Airways is a case in point. Through trial and tribulation, through consultation and arguments and fights and everything else, the whole SAA process is now reaching a point where we can move forward, where we can look and countenance a new airline that can rise from, say, if you like, the ashes of SAA, and an airline that can also combine a number of other entities to build not only an airline, but to bolster the aviation industry in our country. Now, I am pretty gung-ho about the future of a new South African Airways. I'm also gung-ho about the future of our aviation industry. And SAA is highly respected on our continent. And it is for that reason that Johannesburg will be used as a hub to be able to distribute COVID-19 medical supplies. So I see a good future for SAA. And similarly, I see even a better future for ESCOM, and there are quite a number of other